off the party board.
Right. March 25th, 2024 agenda. Please be advised that the Board of Supervisors met in executive session on March 20th, 2024 from 6:45 a.m. to 7:45 a.m. to discuss legal, real estate, personal matters. Call to order. It is 6:23. We can stand for pledge right here. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Mr. Moss is here. Mr. Cole here. Mr. Orr here. Public comment, Julie. Mr. Myers.
I have a couple of things for the board. You have approved a check number 2350 for Champion Construction, amount of $34,980. What was that for? And when was that advertised for bid?
Mr. Leitzer, do we have to advertise it?
My check there for you, but I'll check it out and get an answer.
Well, I can tell you that was done with the COVID money. It's not even a permitted use of COVID money. So yes, please check in on it because I think it was illegal use. Your time sheets, I requested to see them for the first part of the year. Is there a reason why we went away from breaking down what we're doing every day and just putting down doing our public works duties or roadmaster? We used to put that down as a list of what all you were doing. No comments? I mean, what are you trying to hide? You know, I'm looking here at the timesheet. Here's one for 8 hours, 8 hours, 8 hours, 8 hours, 4 hours, total 40 hours.
Mr. Leitzer advised this is not even illegal to do.
But also, the auditors put in there that you would put down any time used for your comp time and the date it's being used from. It is not on there. It's not on any of them.
They're separate sheets. Everybody signs this stuff.
It's not on the time sheet. I'm sitting here with one.
We can get their sheets too.
Okay. Last thing is the Act 13, which is our impact fees. That requires that there be a report filed with the PUC in April. Have we ever done that? I mean, you are supposed to file a report with the PUC what that was used for. Is that being done?
Why is it always not like that?
Mr. Brady. Mr. Brady. Member Martinez, I can. Don.
I guess this pertains to the previous meeting. There are two sides to every story. I'd like to know how many people in here actually farm agriculture and make a living on it. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how you make your living, is on your farm. You don't have any other income.
Here we go.
All right, there aren't many of us. And we have people that don't do that, trying to tell us how to use our land. There's something called agritourism, that all your agricultural organizations, there are laws that support it, that create an environment for farmers to be able to, believe me, and you all know it, it's tough. It's practically impossible to make a living on a farm. And I don't see an issue with using your land, bring people in, have a Halloween, a fall event or something like that, to try to make a living on the land, because you can't do it with agriculture alone. I assure you, most of you have other income. And, that's just a different side to that story. And another thing, the school has a lot to do with all of this. The school has improved tremendously over the last 10 years. I don't know if you're aware of it or not. It's creating a lot of interest in the moving into the Denver School District. And we're part of that district. And, there are going to be people that want to move in here. As far as, a housing plan or something, I don't know. But the thing is, I don't care how many rules you have. If somebody wants to come in and build a housing project, they're going to get it done. I agree that there has to be limits to all of it. And to say that they're not being transparent, or they're not, you guys all have had your input. They have ears, they've been listening to you, so, you do have a say in this, and I'm sure they're gonna give it consideration. Thank you.
John Paul.
The township office hasn't had supervision or leadership for many years. We're seeing that now. No financials available, no budgets made available, no reports filed with the state. Our township office is a mess. And I think it's time to clean house.
Ronnie Yates. Dave Burchell.
First of all, I'd like to congratulate you, Jim, for your cowardly move to go to Worcester Bank, okay? Resign, you ought to resign now and turn yourself in. Seriously. You have, I think, isn't a conflict of interest? One of the big parts of Worcester Bank? That's what I would say. All right, and then get back to business. Like Tom, I've talked to many people about this, all right? And I can count on one hand the people it's for. Alright, and that's the people that'll benefit by it. And then, people, I don't know if everybody's aware of the way you spend money at certain pay, and then they're getting bids for anything. You just do what you want. It's amazing. You do what you want when you want. Nobody keeps you in check. So you ought to, this is all it is. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. You were voted in to keep the township the way it has been. But for some reason, that we can speculate, you want to open it up to all. We're not South Bank and Worcester Bank, okay? And you have your mindset on ruining our beautiful township. When people come to visit my place, they all talk about how nice and quiet it is. But that will soon change, because you people, the people will not forget come election time. Believe me, I promise you that. And but hey, all I gotta say is good luck. Come election time, people won't forget. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I already spoke, but one additional comment is we started this proceeding here this afternoon. You asked us to say the pledge. And in the pledge it says, liberty and justice for all, not just for some.
Now we have our guest, Mr. Trent, John. Can you say a couple words?
Sure. So I've got some slides here to walk through. I think I mentioned all last time, John Trent. Some changes from when we had this session a couple of weeks ago to where we are now. And then also, because this is a redo of the public meeting back in October at the Planning Commission and supervisors, I also want to talk about the other two projects, the subdivision land development ordinance and the codification. So I'll give an overview on that and then some of the specifics in terms of the rezoning. As I said, there are 3 projects. Number 1 was to take a look at what the township has in terms of ordinances on the books. Phase 2 was to look at the subdivision land development ordinance and the zoning ordinance. Generally, the zoning ordinance that we talked about extensively deals with the uses of property. The subdivision and land development ordinance deals with how property is developed, minimum lot sizes, infrastructure requirements, that kind of thing. Phase 3 is adoption of those 2 ordinances. And the final phase was called a codification. The township offices were kind of a mess several years ago in terms of the ordinances that were on the books or perceived to be on the books. The township since then has done a lot of work to collect all that up so that we know what ordinances have been adopted by the township. And so you go through them what's called a codification process. And so that brings all the ordinances together into one book. And then that book is online, available, searchable. I'm sure lots of you had trouble getting access to ordinances because they're just not available. They're in desk drawers and in file cabinets. That's all been cleaned up. It's all one big stack of paper right now. And going through the process now with the codification company to scan all those in and digitize them so that you can access them on the website, you can search them, you can download them, so that residents, property owners, everybody has that information so you know what ordinances are on the books in the township. So those are those 3 projects: the zoning, subdivision, land development, and the codification. Starting with the zoning, we talked last time about the zoning districts. Those districts aren't changing. There's the A1, B1, B2, M1, and the 2 residential districts, and the airport overlay district. That's the only addition. There wasn't an overlay district before. It is required by the FAA, and it is now part of the proposed ordinance. It's really just height limitations in terms of runways, and that's all predetermined and calculated by the FAA, and we adopt a model ordinance that's promulgated by the state. Zoning map, as I said, is not being changed. However, there really wasn't a good version of the zoning map, so the town has been working with the engineer, similar to with the old ordinances, to try and get the zoning map accurate and current, because changes have been made over the years by ordinance, but then not necessarily reflected on the actual map. So ultimately, when that's all done, there would be a map that actually represents the ordinances for the township in terms of what properties are zoned, what zoning district. Ideally, also be available online in a more legible form that you can access and figure out what property is in what zoning district. The zoning ordinance process started back in April 2022. And fast forward through several board of supervisors meetings and public meetings and planning commission meetings. The last planning commission meeting, when we had this public meeting, was October 2023. When I say public meeting, sorry, I'm in a good spot to stand. The municipalized planning code, I think Bill mentioned that earlier, that's what outlines what municipalities are or aren't allowed to do for zoning and land development. And I think we talked about that a couple of weeks ago. So the MPC, the Municipalized Planning Code, says that we have to go through a specific process for adoption of these types of ordinances. That includes a public meeting at the Planning Commission, where they then make recommendations. So that's not happened twice in October 2023, and then tonight formally. And then obviously we had the extra meeting a couple of weeks ago and interim meetings throughout the process. Once that recommendation happens, then it goes to the supervisors, which is on the agenda for the supervisors tonight, and then they would authorize what's called a public hearing. That's more formal than the public meeting, so that's actually, court reporter is here to provide testimony, the hearing is closed, and then the supervisors consider adoption. So right now, that's slated to tentatively take place on March 20th, May 20th. If the supervisors authorize that tonight, then we advertise that hearing. The hearing takes place on the 20th. And then a meeting after that, or that same night, but most likely will be a regular meeting the following month later. They would then consider adoption of that ordinance as it was presented at the public hearing. I talked last time about the 3 use types that are permitted. They're all permitted by the Municipalized Planning Code. We can permit uses used by right, special exception, or conditional use. The proposed ordinances has all 3, and the current zoning ordinance does as well. Uses by right go to the zoning officer for approval. Conditional uses go to the board of supervisors for hearing and approval. And special exceptions go to the zoning hearing. So what did I say? Special exceptions go to the zoning hearing board. Conditional uses go to the board of supervisors. Processes are similar. They are conditional use or a hearing, and then there's consideration So in the use chart that we've been talking about over the last couple of meetings, it's been consolidated into a version that just has two columns, so what's in the current zoning ordinance and then what's proposed. That has those different use types represented. So for each use, you find the use and go across the row, and then you know if there's dashes, it's not permitted in that zoning district. If there's an R, it's permitted as a use by right. If it's a C, as conditional use, or SE is special exception. And again, just to emphasize the uses by right, if you meet all the requirements in the ordinance, the zoning officer issues that use permit. For the conditional uses, there's additional conditions in the ordinance. Supervisors hold a hearing for the conditional use. They can attach additional conditions during that hearing process, and then if they approve the application, those conditions are locked in with the approval. Special exceptions, the same thing, but in front of the zoning hearing board. So the hearing board holds the hearing, and they determine whether or not the use should be approved and whether or not additional conditions should be attached. I went through those slides, I can't imagine you see them here, but this is available. You all have actually got some copies floating around this use chart. So you have the chart in front of you. It's been updated with everything with today's date. So as we talked about 2 weeks ago, and I think the meeting before that, as I said, that's go to the planning commission for recommendation. That happened tonight. Then we locked in today's date, March 25th, sort of like the line in the sand in terms of here's all the changes. So if any additional changes come out of tonight, we then make those final round of changes and then send it for review by the county and start preparation for the public hearing in May. I'm going to go through these slides just quickly, and then we can zoom in if there's specific uses you want to talk about. But commercial recreation was a topic discussed at the last meeting, and so there are changes to the definition. And then on page 63 of the ordinance, there are the conditions attached to the commercial recreation use, including a minimum of 5 acres, 200-foot setback, parking requirements, no outdoor speakers, etc. Same with kennel. There's some changes to the kennel requirements. There's additional use on page 81. Landfill was also discussed last time. Some additional regulations added there. Setbacks were increased. Medical marijuana grower processor was discussed last time. Microbrewery, distillery, outdoor amusement, increase the setbacks for the outdoor amusement. Racetrack. It was moved. This use was separated out from the commercial recreation. There's some discussion about allowing some commercial recreation uses at our last meeting, but not the racetrack. So we kept the racetrack separate and added the separate commercial recreation use, so we can allow some of those uses, but not all of them in different zoning districts. Racetrack has lots of conditions attached to it. They continue on this next slide. Special event barn. Language has been revised to set a schedule for maintenance of the restroom and trash collection. On page 113 of the ordinance. Those conditions are extensive to go through Z. Zoo was added. The use was formerly called an exotic animal park. It was renamed and regulations were revised to reflect the existing park in the township and any future expansion of that use. Keeping of chickens and ducks, the lot size range was decreased from 5 to 3 acres. The allowable number of chickens was increased to allow for more use of the properties throughout the township. Chickens and ducks. Special event barn, we talked about that a lot last time. So we talked about how the fact that there's a use by principal use and accessory use. So the principal use is the main use on the lot, and the accessory use is incidental or subordinate to, by definition, the principal use. So for the special event barns, as an accessory use, you have to have farming activity. You have to farm on the property, and if you have a barn and you want to rent it out, you can do so, but that's an accessory use to the farming activity. And there are conditions that go along with that use as well. Subdivision and land development ordinance. So subdivision is basically when you are moving a property line. If you're creating new lots, so taking a big lot and making little lots from it. If you're moving a lot line over to sell a piece of property to your neighbor or a portion of your property, or if you're taking 2 lots and consolidating them into one. That's all part of subdivision in Pennsylvania. and your subdivision and land development handles how those are processed by the township. The township has to approve those, and they go to the county for reporting. Other regulatory topics in the subdivision and land development ordinance include the process for how you submit an application to the township, layout and design, installation of infrastructure, how development is phased, etc. So the township, for example, was discussed earlier, residential development. If that were to come in, the subdivision land development ordinance would say, if you're going to take this 100 acres and divide it into lots for homes, it tells you how small the lots can be, where the roads have to be, how the roads are designed, infrastructure requirements, basically how that whole plan is going to get laid out. A land development is basically any construction on a piece of property. So whether you're paving or whether you're building a building, that's called land development in Pennsylvania, and that has to go through this approval process through the subdivision land development ordinance. So amendments to the current SALDO, expanding the definition section, providing those procedures for the application process, requiring electronic copies, clarifying application types, specifying what's required in land development, because a lot of times you get applications that are not complete, and that puts the township in a bind because you don't have the information you need to consider whether or not you should approve it. There are 3 application types that are outlined in this subdivision land development ordinance. There's going to be a major subdivision, a minor subdivision, and a land development. So the MPC says that we have to, if we're going to have a subdivision land development ordinance, we have to specify how we're going to process our applications. Right now in the current ordinance, it's not clear. Now in the proposed ordinance, there are 3 types, and they're just treated a little bit differently. So a major subdivision would be, for example, that 100-acre lot that I mentioned. If you're going to chop that up into single-family homes, to 1-acre single-family homes, you have to show some more information. You got to go through more of a rigorous process because that's an intensive development. For something minor, if you're just moving a lot line over, that can be a lot simpler than if you're putting 100 homes on a 100-acre property. In the land development, we just have one process for that. If you're constructing anything in the township, you go through that land development process so you can do the construction. And generally, that process starts with a pre-application conference. That will be coming in, talking with staff, zoning officer, here's how we do applications in Somerset, and here's the process you go through, here's the ordinance, do you have any application questions, questions with the ordinance, clarify all that, get the application in the door, we do the review by a township engineer, planning commission reviews it, planning commission makes a recommendation, the board can hold a public hearing, the supervisors can, they're not required to, and then they go to public supervising, or go to a public meeting for the Board of Supervisors to review the land development, and then they decide approval or denial of that land development application. One really important thing about subdivision land development is that the municipalized planning code puts some strict timelines on us. So if we don't meet these timelines, then, as I say, some bad stuff happens, particularly that 90-day clock. So the current ordinance isn't real clear. We clarify that applications have to be processed by the township within 90 days. If the township supervisors don't make a decision within 90 days, the state law says that the applicant can build whatever they want, regardless of whether it meets your ordinances or not. So we now outline in the ordinance directly, here's our process, we're going to meet these timelines, this is what everybody has to meet. You can extend that. If you have a complicated application, you can extend that timeline, that 90 days, but the applicant has to agree to that. The ordinance codification, I mentioned earlier, it's basically taking up all these different pieces of paper and parts from over the last however many years the township's been in existence, 100 and something, and putting them all in one place. And then putting them in order, putting them in some logical sense so you can search them, making them digital, posting them online. So why are we doing this? We last codified in 2009, and quite frankly, that codification didn't really catch all of the ordinances. So this is literally every ordinance that's ever been adopted by the township, making sure they're all in one place, and then it'll all be easily accessible online to the public or anybody who wants to view it. We anticipate late fall would be ready for the township to adopt this new codification. It's a long process, as you can imagine, during some years worth of ordinances. So right now, all the ordinances, the township's done a great job to collect them all into one place. They're all being reviewed, cross-referenced, compiled together. Then they spit back to us, the codification company, gives the township a big, huge binder with all the ordinances in one place. Township solicitor reviews it, staff reviews it, supervisors review it, and then it goes for adoption by the supervisors. And then once that's adopted, the slate is wiped clean. So that replaces everything, so there's no confusion about some ordinance that was adopted in 1927 that nobody has a copy of. Next steps, as I said today, is our public meeting again, and then May 20th, the hearing is potentially scheduled if the supervisors approve advertising for that hearing. And then June or July, the supervisors can consider adoption of the ordinance. In terms of where we are now, we have everything stamped March 25th, and unless I hear otherwise, I know Lindsay gave me some markups, but I actually think, Lindsay, these copies have already, those changes have already been made and what was distributed. No? Okay. Okay, well then, I would say if there are any changes that the township wants or anybody wants, we need to sort of write them in blood. Because, much I like you all, we gotta draw a line in the sand here somewhere and get this thing moving forward to a hearing. So, we have everything that's marked March 25th. If there's any additional changes that the supervisors want, staff wants, public wants to suggest, now's the time. And we'll make one final round of changes and then ship that off for advertising at the hearing. So I can certainly go through those changes if that would be helpful.
What changes were proposed?
You want me to go through? Okay. So, I'm going to sit down, but I'll still talk about, let me know if you can't hear me. So, let's see, this has already been changed. So this is, that one's good. Everything on the first page is already. So we go to the second page, commercial recreation. Change their M1CU, that's already there. And B1R. So I guess the first new change would be to add commercial recreation as a use by right to the B1.
John, this summary, I think has all the changes, doesn't it? I printed this right off the website today.
Okay, so Lindsay did that, but I don't have that. I have it redistributed from March 25th. I have the hard copy markup.
This is what we passed out. So
Okay.
this should have the last changes in it, right? Right. This was printed off the website, okay.
So did everybody see that? I'll go through it. Great.
Well, that's what we used, that's what we passed out. We printed copies of that, so I think they have.
So then we'll take that and we'll just update, I mean, this we're not gonna do anymore because this is old. So we're just gonna only update the ordinance itself. So we'll make one final round of changes and we'll take what you're.
Well, this doesn't, this is what we spoke to this evening, that all the uses that we talked about that are potentially very objectionable, that we rejected the whole thing, were the latest changes. So,
That's what they posted on the website for everybody to view.
right.
So that's what we're all going in as what it is.
We discussed as objectionable, that was what was left after the changes were made, what we discussed this evening.
Okay.
So we still have a lot of things that are highly objectionable. That's why we voted it down.
Number one, we need a motion to approve the minutes of our February 14, 2024 meeting. That's the motion. All in favor? Yes. Number two, approval of checks, warrants transferred as listed, any other necessary transfers. Need a motion to approve the checks, warrants transferred as listed. All in favor? Yes. Yes. Three, old business, A, Somerset Township Park Property Subdivision Revision. Planning Commission approved it today. Need a motion to approve the Somerset Township Park Property Subdivision Revision. I'll second. All in favor? Yes. B, open and award fuel bids. We have one fuel bid.
I feel like I need to get closer because they're not talking very loud. You're totally out of it.
We have one bid for the fuel from Brewston Petroleum. We're gonna table this. Make a motion to table it, date, sign, next meeting. Wednesday, April 10th. Make a motion to table what time? Make a motion. I see open it in award and students.
That's the definition of deliberation. That's the definition of deliberation, letting the people know.
Should we be sharing this with the group?
We're looking at the two bids. I'll let you know exactly what the number are. Once I find the number.
Good job.
We thought they was in Spanish. Yeah, it's most urbane.
I see open. All right, we have two bids for the anti-skid, one from A&S and one from Morgan. A&S is $27.50 $2.50 a ton, Morgan's $35.50 a ton. Need a motion to award ANS our anti-skid at $27.50 a ton. All in favor? Yes. D, authorize proposed ordinance, held no public hearing, advertisement May 20th, 2024 at 6 p.m. Need a motion to authorize that? I'll make the motion. All in favor? Yes. E, motion to appoint agriculture security area advisory committee members Joe Cole, Brian Brookie, Frank Lukich, Paul Myers, and John Yates. Need a motion to appoint those guys. All in favor? Yes. 4, new business. A, accept the resignation of James Boston, Director of Public Works, effective May 11, 2020, to March 11, 2024. Make the motion. All in favor? Yes. B, authorize engineer to advertise bids for 2024 paving projects. Need a motion to authorize engineer for our paving. I'll second. All in favor? Yes. C, authorize an engineer to advertise bids for our 2024 tar and chip. Need a motion to authorize an engineer for the tar and chip for 2024. Make the motion. Second. All in favor? Yes. Yes. D, Bentonville Public Library donation $3,000. That's what we did last year. I'd like to make a motion to authorize Bentonville Public Library donation of $3,000. Second. All in favor? Yes. 5, reports. A, supervisors. Anything, Mark?
Presently trimming trees right now, trying to get the roads ready that we're gonna pave and our chip.
Secretary Jewel. Treasury report, please.
General fund,
We can't hear you.
general fund, 860.
Still can't hear you.
Liquid fuels, 167,000.
Can you speak up, please?
Yeah,
We can't hear everything you're saying.
We know you hear her.
Talk out, Frank.
Treasury report, general fund, $864,000, liquid fuels, $167,000, local share account, $145,000, escrow Rice Lincoln, $200,000, German Lutheran Cemetery, $21,000, Act 13 fund, $3.2 million, total of $4,597,000. Road department, Joe.
We've been doing some, shoulder backup on the roads we paved last year. We were waiting for some of the FIOS crews to put their boxes in along the roads, so they wouldn't mess up the 2A that we've been putting down. We completed Myers Road, now we're working on Lively Road. And, also picking up the branches and logs and everything else out of the ditch lines, so our mowers can mow this summer, make the roads look good. If there's any other questions, issues, or you see wrong with the roads or anything like that, please call me.
In regard to the FIOS and the high-speed internet, the township was not notified ever on any of these. They said they were coming. We were not given any dates or times or what roads they were doing. It's all through the county commissioners with the COVID relief money. That's what we see the box along the road. We don't know when the cable will be run. They're putting the infrastructure in now. We have no idea when it will be run. We had input that we wanted it in Somerset Township, but we didn't have any input on what roads they were going to do. That was determined by the county, not us. We made our plea to them to get the high speed to us, so select roads are getting high speed. They're coming with the internet. I need a motion to adjourn.
Wait a minute, I have one more question. Since we're having trouble with time sheets, I recommend we put in a time clock. That way everyone punches in. I think that's a great idea.
I need a motion to adjourn.
Wasn't he supposed to talk about something though in his supervisor's report that we brought up when Bill was talking the planning?
Yeah, I have a question. You were supposed to address why this all was started. Did I miss that?
Pete, if you want to address why we started this whole process, please.
Sure, it started the ball rolling. If you guys look at the chart, the purple versus the green.
Pete, why don't you get up front so we can do that?
And this was Pete, he can explain too, he came to the supervisors, him and Harold came to us and asked us to do this, and he can explain why.
So he can be paid by us.
2 years ago, the supervisors approached our company. We were previously doing just building code, building inspections. And then when, Mr. Burchin left, they asked us to take on code enforcement. So there were multiple occasions where the code enforcement, when I had to go enforce, obviously the first thing you have to do is go and see what the ordinance says in order to do that. When I did that, I found out just how badly the current ordinance was. When you had one, it incorporated the subdivision land development ordinance. It was very hard to understand. You guys have gone through any of it, so as part of this update, you'll understand what I mean. The biggest thing though is any one of these things with a blank line in the purple means that there was no use at all. So that was one of the biggest driving factors when I brought it up, is that's in case somebody comes through the door and asks for one of those uses. I can't just openly deny them just because it wasn't written. That's not the way the law works. So I recommended to the supervisors that they go ahead and get this updated because A, it was roughly 30 years since it's been any kind of major update, and B, all these uses were missing, and C, even the ones that were there was quite a few instances where I couldn't enforce the way I would in most of our other townships because you guys were lacking in a lot of the language that just supplemental regulations. How high does your grass have to be before it's illegal? All kind of different things like that. Are you allowed to live on your property with an RV? Most townships, that's 101. No. You guys didn't have it in your ordinance. So somebody could have parked an RV in your front yard, hooked it up to your thing, and just started living there. You couldn't enforce against it. So I said these guys.
Wait, do I know the person with the RV? I mean, like, is this a stranger just saddling up on my land, or what?
Discovered, or I guess it was on recommendation for Pete to come in here, and that's basically how it went.
Can you give us an idea, since you're on enforcement, with this new conglomeration that they want to do, how would you enforce this? How would you enforce the road, so to speak?
That's a very,
Or curfews, or
it's a very complicated question. Everything's different.
You have to know how to do it before we enforce
Well,
this.
give me an example.
Well, one thing is that, we're residential agricultural.
Yes.
Well, why do we want to be industrial and business and add all these additional uses in there? If we are residential agriculture, enforce those regulations, not broaden it out to all this other stuff. That's what we're not happy about.
Regulations, that's what I was getting at. So you guys, every time, like I said, there's a blank there. Mr. Trent explained this the last meeting. The best way I can say it is if there's not a use there, that doesn't automatically, you don't just get the denial. That's not the way it works. The way it works is they can come in and go for a curative amendment, and then they get their amendment. That happens on a regular basis.
well, why do you want to put business in agriculture instead of in the business zone? Well, you were the recommendation for and came to them.
That's what we've been arguing about for 6
The businesses should be in businesses. It doesn't matter if you're a little store or your Dollar General. Like, that's what's going to end up. You guys are all going to have Rural Kings and Dollar Generals everywhere.
That's not true.
Really?
Before all this, how did we enforce something that wasn't addressed in the code?
I don't know, I wasn't
We
enforcing
made
it.
amendments to the zoning,
And that's what your ordinance was. It was a bunch of different amendments smashed
We didn't throw it
together.
all out, we didn't throw it all out like you're doing here, we made amendments.
That's exactly what we're doing now.
Those amendments, you changed the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know what, whenever
No,
people
you're
wanted
never
something,
too
didn't you ask like the surrounding adjoining properties, their
They're
opinion?
supposed to.
That's what
Wasn't
we've
that
done.
part of
That's
it?
what
And
we've
if
done
somebody
for
wanted to do
years.
something, they came to you and said, are you against this, you
Used to
for
be.
this?
Used to be.
Right?
Yeah.
That's how it was handled, right?
Yeah, you would get
We're looking at the
registered
impact.
letter.
Yeah.
We're looking at
So
the
you
impact
guys
for our
gonna talk amongst
neighborhoods.
yourselves, or you gonna let me answer a question? Because
By all
you
means.
guys
Go
are
ahead.
telling me things that I don't.
How would you
Question at a
enforce,
time.
how would you enforce
That's the question.
cars on a road in, say, like a party barn? How would you enforce them leaving on time or having enough room?
First of all, they wouldn't be allowed, it's right in the ordinance, they're not allowed to park on a public road at all, period.
And how
Well,
would
we
you
know how
enforce
people
it?
follow rules, though. How would you
Yeah.
enforce people not parking?
I wouldn't enforce anything else, I'd have to go out there and take
Pete,
pictures of it.
there is so many things in this township that aren't enforced. You go look on Rainy Road, that house on Rainy Road. What have you done to do that? Nothing has been done for that in years.
The one where the guy's been living in the driveway for a year and a half.
Right. They're not enforcing.
He's gone.
He's gone, but look at the crap that's there.
Ma'am,
Well, you try going past it every single day.
I got a file on it, he's been removed.
The shit that's been there?
You know what, but I don't know what you want me to tell you, you said I didn't enforce.
I want to tell you
said
what you're gonna do as a law enforcement officer.
What?
Go ahead. Speak to us.
You're gonna tell me what?
No, I want you to tell us what you're going to
Same
do.
thing I just said I did, I can show you the file.
No, you
if
said
did
you
on it.
weren't sure. You're not allowed to park on the road.
there any
Forget
answer
it.
that's
We
gonna
know.
satisfy
We
you?
know. Forget it, Pete. It's okay.
So can I have a quick question? He mentioned earlier that in the old days there were amendments. Why aren't those considered in these changes? If there's amendments to it. It seems like that this is
Oh, he doesn't know how
This
to
is
answer
your
it.
plan, not our plan. This is just your plan.
No, sir, all I
Yes,
can tell you
it is. That's what it
I
feels
have
like.
no,
That's
this
what it
is
feels
your
like.
uses. I don't care what uses are on this. I'm a code enforcement officer. If the use isn't there, then I don't enforce on it. It doesn't matter what's on this list to me. If it's on the list, I can
But
enforce it.
don't you get paid for it if it's on the list?
If it's not on the list, sorry.
If it's not on the list, I can't enforce
If
against
it's
it.
not on the list, so if it's a marijuana processing facility, why would, they decide, instead of putting it on the list in a commercial or business, why would they throw it in the residential? Since it is a business use, I would say you put it in a business area.
I don't believe it's in the residential.
It's in A1.
A1 is residential.
I mean, it's not R1, but
Lots and a few farms that are left. It's marijuana processing and these other, we've been arguing about.
they look
this
like
for 6
warehouses.
months. The supervisors are the ones that have been driving it. We call them woodshed meetings. We go in and we get beat up. And we said, the people don't know what you're doing, and they said they do. We had meetings, we finally, know what's going
No, I
on.
think what the answer was, in general, is that the answer you got was, you can eliminate it, but if somebody comes in and challenges it, we're gonna lose in court. That's what it was.
No, that's wrong, because we have a legal opinion, we do not have to have these uses in A1. We have to have these uses, but not in A1.
No,
So,
okay, fair
You've
enough.
been here now and getting on. You're gonna get sued in court and you're gonna lose. So if you go back to listen what I'm saying. You go back to the fair share doctrine and the court cases that are decided. The benchmark by the court is 15% of the total land in the township. You put it at 50%. 80%. Benchmark is 15%.
I didn't put it anywhere. I said the ordinance needs updated. They
You
brought
want
up,
definitions, and what are you gonna do with tiny homes?
how many questions do you want me to answer?
You're the one that.
I didn't put anything anywhere. The use chart was brought in, it was debated on, and you guys came in at the last meeting and said, we don't want the use chart.
Well, who put the stuff on the use chart then, if it wasn't you? That's who we want to talk to.
Last year, sitting in these meetings, and they're just dominated by you and Trent.
They're not dominated by anything. I don't argue over these uses.
He works for Trent.
You're the one telling Trent where
Or
to
you
go.
do services?
I
I
need
work for
to-
myself, whoever said
You
that.
serve? Oh.
I'm going round and round here. I have what I think is a legitimate, actual question, a factual situation. I own 60 acres next to one of these so-called party blocks facilities. All right? Now, it's been 2 or 3 years ago, the house that I live in, the septic system was installed in 1960 when the house was built. Okay? Well, that septic system is totally inadequate under today's conditions. Okay? So I spent literally tens of thousands of dollars upgrading the septic system. And the first thing I did is I went to the township, and the township referred me to Washington County Sewage Council. I think that's who they are. So I'm legitimate and I'm permitted. Now, I know that this party barn facility, the soil conditions are the same type as mine. It's highly unlikely that they're gonna be able to accommodate the sewage that that place is gonna be producing on that property, unless they go into a major commercial, treatment facility, which they can do. But who's gonna make sure that these people comply with environmental issues?
So the party event barn, the way I understand it, the way this is, the current, proposal is that they've broken it out to accessory event barns and full-time event barns. Full-time event barn, I believe, is only allowed in the B1 and B2 district. It would be following the same scenario as any other commercial businesses down along 519 or anywhere else in the whole county, really. You're really just not gonna be able to build that unless you have a facility that you sewage.
Who passes judgment and approves it?
Well, John, actually, for the party barn accessory use, you're allowed to bring in a trailer with toilets.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking, so that's exactly the other answer.
Bring in a what?
You can bring in.
Porta Johns.
That sounds like a real nice neighbor.
Well, garbage is to be, it's also in the conditions, the garbage and the porta johns can be removed within days of the event. So that's not something that's gonna be sitting there all the time.
We're gonna enforce it?
Yes, we're gonna have to. And they're passing the ordinance. Again, it goes to the point that this is the.
Oh, so they are passing it.
It's the same as, I said if it gets passed.
No,
If it
no.
gets passed,
No,
if
you
the
didn't.
proposal stays the way it is, okay? Then it gets passed and all the language that's in there now that you guys have been able to read and can read and are welcome to stand up here and make public comments to change. Those are all accepted. Once it gets passed, then that's what I'm gonna enforce against. So you guys can read it. The reason, one of the biggest reasons is I had a lot of constituents here that would try to read it themselves and they couldn't understand it. They're like, that's not the way an ordinance should be written. It should be written so that everybody can understand it. The common man and somebody that does it for a living. I don't think I'm any more special than anybody else, but I happen to do it for a living, so I have a little bit better understanding.
So you're saying this facility needs to have their septic system contained, I use that term?
Well,
disposed of by removing it at all sites.
Well, so the way it's proposed is the accessory use barn would be exactly that. Like you could have a house with a primary system, just like your house, and we wouldn't enforce anything on the house and the primary structure and its septic system unless it was failing. Then we just refer it to the county for their own enforcement anyway. So we do with any failure.
You got mail, baby.
The event barn would have to be covered under either they would have to bring in porta johns of some sort, or no, I don't think there's anything in there for. Yes, we would.
Yeah, it has the portable johns are the proposed.
I mean, why I hesitated was I don't know that there's anything in there that couldn't say they couldn't put in some kind of holding tank, but that would have to be also approved by the county if they were going to let it go.
Holding tanks are allowed for businesses.
Right.
You're not allowed for a house, but you're allowed to have a holding tank for business. But then for the party barns, both primary and accessory use, it allowed trailers to bring in portable johns.
I have seen in the case of the wedding reception I attended a few years ago, it was in a very upscale residence. And what they did is they had one of these trailer units that served as their bathroom facility.
Yeah, it's becoming.
Yeah, they got sinks and everything in there, heated. They are, they're nice. Better than mine.
If it's causing me a problem, who do I talk to?
You would report it to the township, and we would investigate it and make sure that it's a violation. And, you know, if it doesn't meet the conditions, so, for instance, if you have, what exactly is not happening, right? They're not addressing sewage at all, they're not bringing in it.
So far, they have not established the party mark.
Is that here? Oh, they haven't done it yet. Well, they would have to meet all those conditions before they were allowed to open. That's the whole idea behind putting the conditions in the first place.
Like I said, what I struggle with is, I'm the neighbor.
Yeah, I understand.
If they're not meeting those conditions, and you come out, and you just stop it right now, they're like just laughing in your face. Then what happens? You call the cops or just like.
I don't have a badge and a gun, so the reality is, you're right, I would have to probably let that event go on for the rest of the night and then.
How about they have an event the next night?
Oh,
You come back.
well, I would start enforcement at that point and we would
What's
probably
that?
get
You
a.
fine them or what?
No, they have to get an occupancy, they'll have to get a permit, so that permit will get pulled, they'll get told, probably by myself and legal counsel, or send them a letter and tell them they're not allowed to operate anymore until they get whatever problem they fix. That's the reality of enforcement, anything though.
Does Baker have any jurisdiction? Department of Natural Resources?
That's out of my, that's not my lane, but it would be DCNR. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what you'd be violating of that, but it would be violating one of their rules. I mean, there's possible enforcement. One of the things, and that's why there's, I think, there's some issue with somebody mentioned clean and green earlier. Some of these event barns have to watch that in how it affects their taxes on that stuff. I mean, it's not my lane, but, and I'm not an attorney by any stretch of imagination, but, from what I understand, there's some tax issues. If you're on clean and green, there's only certain things you're allowed to do and not allowed to do.
I'm sure clean and green will apply because it applies to me.
Well, I'm sure it applies, but the question is, that's why the accessory use is probably allowed.
It's out there in a very gray area.
Yeah, I think, well, I don't want to speak to it, I'm not in the taxes, that has something to do with it. Well, I want to check into that if you're planning on doing some of these things.
Let me make a comment.
Yes, sir, I'll get to you now. Go ahead.
I called the supervisors up and said that the road sign on my driveway up to the farm, which is not a township road, because some people assumed it was a township road. Somebody stole this sign, said Sarah Lane. So the township come out and put up a new Sarah Lane sign for me, and I appreciate it, guys.
Well,
Doesn't mean I'm not gonna hold you feet to the fire for everything else.
by the way, guys, I mean this, I try to do the best I can. I grew up here. I'm not trying to change your township into something else, but I'm telling you right now, if you guys don't have some of these ordinances in place, when the new development comes, if you don't think it's coming, it's not because we're inviting it, it's the other way around. It's already pushing out through North Strabane. Everybody can see it. You got sewage right over to, sewage is currently up to 84 number. I don't believe there's any plans for anybody here to make it, but it only takes a very ambitious developer to extend it themselves, and then it's right across the street. So if you guys don't think it's coming, it's coming.
We're not saying, we're not gonna put these uses in business, we're saying we don't want it in a.
Wow, that's fine, and I'm not arguing over the use chart.
We've been
I'm
saying
not
that
arguing-
for 6 months.
You guys can argue over the use chart, because, again, I will enforce the language that is written. So however you guys wanna make this chart, that's fine, I'll enforce to that. I don't have any other vested interest in it.
Well, it seems like there was an impasse up until this point, right here, right now. These gentlemen are saying, this is what we don't want. You're saying, well, I don't want that either. So then we need to come together and hammer out what it is that we do want.
It's not that I don't want it, it's not my decision to make.
It's not him, it's the supervisors.
That's like telling a cop what laws does he like to enforce.
We had this same conversation at the 2-hour session that John Trent ran. We said, here's the things we want. We said the same things. As soon as Jimmy Barksdale came back from vacation, I sent him a text and said, planning and zoning wants to sit with you and work this out.
Oh, so you're way off the
And
side
I
of it.
got nothing. The next thing I got was,
Just a
we
little
met with Trent, here's what you're gonna get, that's it.
There's also things you guys want to take out of the ordinance that clearly gonna get challenged. I mean, kennels not in an A1, where else are you gonna put them, in the business district?
We don't need these commercial uses in 95% of the townships.
Right. They're
Yeah,
not commercial
nobody-
use. You keep saying that, they're not commercial use.
We're up to Pete anyway, so.
Now's the time to get them done.
You asked for public comment on proposed changes to the green section here.
Guys, I can't hear her. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I have two questions.
Yes.
One, maybe just a comment. You asked for public comment on proposed changes to the green section. I think, I don't want to speak for everybody in this room, but I think that the zoning commission that met right before the supervisor committee declined, or the planning committee declined the proposed changes, and Bill brought up some very, very specific changes that I think most everyone, I don't want to speak for everyone here, disagreed with, right? And that's why the proposed changes that are listed in the green here were declined and voted upon, and Bill, thank you for the specific examples. So that's one comment. I don't know that we need to be specific in what those proposed changes are. Bill has all of those. And that's why they were declined. So that's the first comment. Second, I'm just curious, and I don't typically come to these meetings. I don't know any of the supervisors, so none of this is personal towards the supervisors. But I'm curious to see, one, how much is being paid to Strategic Solutions for all of this work that's being done in comparison to what we paid Strategic Solutions. I'm assuming that if there is a variance in the current state how it is today, if there's a variance where we have to go to you to understand, can it be done or can it be done, assuming the township pays you for something, what is that payment compared to all of the dollars that has been paid to you for the work that's being done to do this work that's been happening for
I don't work for
know.
Strategic Solutions, they're just a separate consultant.
Or to Strategic Solutions, and
Yeah.
sorry, I thought you did, but
No.
understanding kind of what's the budget going into this, because it sounds like more than half the residents, if not more, don't want these changes. And it's not that we don't want the changes, I hear what you're saying, they have to be slated somewhere, just not in A1.
I get a right to know on exactly what we've spent. And into February, it was $93,000. The total invoices to Strategic Solutions. Point of reference, the total real estate taxes for 2022 were $183,000. That was just through February. We did a right to know for all of the support resources, our solicitor and our engineers and our planning people. We haven't gotten that, but that's quite a bit more. So to date, I'm sure we're over $100,000 for Strategic Solutions because that was into February. So we've spent a lot of money. We got a copy of the 2024 budget about 2 weeks ago. That's posted online on the transparency group. That didn't have a breakout item. I have no idea what the budget is for all of the codification and everything that's been spoken about. But I would guess that it's going to be a hell of a lot of money. And again, when I look at our total real estate taxes were $183,000 in 2022. It's a huge percent of what we're paying for real estate taxes.
I don't think for something that nobody wants. And then my last comment, and again, I don't know the supervisors, so this is nothing personal to the supervisors, but what I'm hearing in the last meeting that I was at and this meeting is the writing's on the wall. It sounds like these changes are gonna happen, and the people that live in A1, the people that are here, aren't gonna be able to do anything about it. The only hope that I have, and I just moved back here. I grew up here, and I just moved back to come to a place. We have 75 acres, to come to a place that I could raise my kids and not be in a commercial area. My only hope is there a process to recall the supervisors? And again, nothing personal, I don't know you guys, but it sounds like this is already gonna go through. And is, in my mind, from what I'm hearing, is that our only option is because what they may be making, and I don't know if there's a conflict of interest, again, I don't know what's happening behind the scenes, but what they may be making off of making these changes happening is gonna outweigh their salary of getting outvoted come next election time. So in my mind, that's our only path forward, is possibly being able to.
And only one will come up for election. It staggers every 2 years. So
The first process is what we're doing now, which is letting everyone know, letting you communicate to the supervisors who are controlling everything now that you don't want it. So we'd like to get the supervisors to vote it down, to sit down with us and work it out. If that doesn't work, you can file an appeal. Having 95% of the township business is not realistic, and that's what we're gonna end up with. So, and there's been things done that give us a reasonable chance on appeal. And if that doesn't work, with something like 90 signatures, you can call for a special election, elect 2 more supervisors, with the 3rd supervisor that comes up for election in 2 years. And through that process, you could end up with 3 of the 5 supervisors that don't want this and would repeal it. And you have several non-working supervisors, which many of the townships have. So those are basically the 3 processes. We're working diligently just to be able to sit down and work it out with something that's acceptable to all the people. And that's what we'd like to do. But those are the other 2 options we're aware of. There may be another one, but that's the only ones we're really aware of.
Can I ask all the supervisors, I think you are all friends of mine. Why won't you work together? Just give me one reason.
I don't know that there's they can answer for themselves, but I'll tell you this. This list of ordinances here, we already, it's not much bigger than our current ordinance. We just put it, the list of uses that are here, they're common across.
I asked this question to the supervisor, not you. Can you just tell me why things won't work together? Is there a legal reason? What is the reason?
We've been doing this for almost 2 years.
Okay.
We're trying to go through this all. We've had public hearings, we've had public meetings. We're trying to get this done as best as we can. We started with Nottingham Township. They used the same company that we used. So we went to them. That's how we started with John Trent. We've been going through this. It hasn't been done in over 30 years. It's a big process. So we're trying to get this done as efficiently as we can. Mr. Marchizak was up there talking earlier. He's saying it. We are not changing anything. We're protecting the township from lawsuits. That's what we're trying to protect us from. And getting back to development in Somerset Township, less than a half-mile away, there's a new development going in. That's going to be less than a half a mile from our township line. We want the development. I personally don't want it. I know Joe, Mark, but we're trying to protect the township of what's going on. He came to us and Harold came to us and said we need to update our ordinances, which we've done. We've met countless times. Mrs. Lore is on the zoning hearing board. She's been involved with us many times. Judy, you want to speak up and say anything about what's going on in the
I just
process?
think a lot of you don't really understand. That hasn't changed in our township. We love our township. I have a lot of property. I want to preserve it too. But when you when you don't have a place for something, then anybody can come in. And there's a big farm that's ready to be sold when the person dies, and it's going to be townhouses because you took townhouses out. Because they can come in and do it. You know, I mean, people don't understand.
About 30
Things
years.
that are built on.
That's fine, but the question I asked, why they're not working together?
We are working on Mark, if you want to tell to Mark,
We've been trying to work with them.
Okay, well,
Being very,
I think everybody needs to try a little more.
very unreasonable.
Let's hear what Joe has to say.
Yeah, let's hear it, Joe.
I don't have the money, first of all.
For what?
Right?
For what?
Is that what you just said?
No.
I'm sorry.
Let's hear from you what
But
you.
I've tried working with them. I mean, it's very hard. I mean, I gotta go both ways here, okay? It's hard for me, it's hard for them when everybody comes in and you can never speak anything because Bill wants to overpower you all the time when you speak.
Is that why you have meetings in the afternoons?
I was not for that, sir. Okay?
Who was?
All right?
Yeah, who was?
I was not for that.
Who was?
Who was for the afternoon?
I was not for that.
Okay, now who was?
Mark, so Lord,
Let's speak
They'll
up.
speak for themselves.
I was for the 2 o'clock.
Why?
Why?
Because you don't want to see us here arguing you, right?
No, we
Yeah,
have.
right.
No, that's wrong.
Right.
Because when we had the 2 o'clock meeting, we ended up having more people there than we did the 7 o'clock meeting.
Oh, 2 o'clock, you have more people here than last one. Yeah. You didn't put tables up for us this time.
They're allowed to smile at each other.
We've changed a lot of things since we
All you
started.
do is up there and laugh at each other the whole time, talk amongst each other.
I have not laughed one time tonight, sir.
Huh?
I have not laughed one time tonight.
That freeze to your right.
I have
The
not
whole
laughed.
night.
Yep, that's right.
Okay? And we made adjustments here.
Not enough yet.
Hey, Joe, let me ask one question. It's a small issue, but I'm just curious how these adjustments happen. I talked to you and Mark. So let's talk about animal daycare. The original hours were 7 a.m. or 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. The original one. You changed it from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Then we talked. Now it's 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Now, why do you even have hours? Why are you setting? Or Mark, why are you setting hours for animal daycare?
I think the animal daycare is, they're dropping their dog off in the morning or something. And I think it was originally 6 to 6.
Why are you setting hours if it's not going to bother the neighbors?
We didn't want more money for.
Okay, so it's going to bother the
They
neighbors.
didn't want it 24 hours.
It is going to bother the neighbors. You're just saying, bother them up to 9 o'clock, and you're all right.
Yeah.
We originally
So I
had,
get to sleep 9 hours, and the dog gets to bark the rest of the day. And I'd like to know which of you three wanted that change. Is the guy who wanted it changed going to admit to it?
We all agreed to that.
Who wanted it?
We all agreed.
I know you agreed. Who brought it up?
It was the first one we had to do it that way. Was there-
And you could make that work if you limited the outside hours, but you don't. I mean, I looked at other ordinance, other townships, and they say keep them indoors. 15 minutes every 2 hours outside. But somebody up there must have an interest in animal daycare or knows someone that does and changed it.
Or a kennel.
we didn't have outside dog runs in the kennel until January. So that's another example.
And
Obviously, that's a
trees
major
in there.
disturbance.
Nobody brought it up, but we all agreed on it.
I wasn't gonna bring it.
And I wonder how much other stuff was slipped in there. I just happened to pick that one out in the conditions.
My name is Jim Bloxtus. Everybody knows who I am. There's things going on Facebook and Twitter and different organizations that a supervisor on Rainy Road is gonna benefit from these changes. And one is that my daughter, and it got back to me, my daughter's gonna open a kennel on Rainy Road and a doggy daycare. My daughter is graduating from Duquesne University on May 10th. On May 17th, she's moving to Nashville, Tennessee for a job. She's not putting a kennel in, and she's not doing a doggy daycare. When people come back to me and tell me this is happening, this was said to them, that somebody on one of our boards came to them and said, I'm going to open up a doggy daycare, and I'm going to open up a kennel, that's when it's personal. And that's when I have problems. I have nothing to gain from this. I own 10 acres, and our family owns 40-something. I have 4 sisters and a brother. Who knows what they're going to do later on with our farm? I have no idea. My two sisters retired from Maryland. If they want to build houses there, they're going to build houses. The 5 of them are going to want to build houses. They're going to build a house. We grew up there. I have nothing to hide. Some people, I've lived there my whole life. For 4 years when I went to college, the only time. Mr. Benedell is here. He knows me personally. He knows my family. He knows what I'm about. Almost everybody here, I know a lot of people. I'm not here to hide anything or to gain anything. The other 2 supervisors here, as far as I know, they're not gaining anything.
I'm not gaining nothing.
Joe's
The
not
wedding
gonna-
venue was going around with me, and nothing happened. Okay, here's,
So that's
in fact, somebody opened my gates up over all this. I'm feeding cows one day, somebody yells down the window, "You suck as a supervisor. You hear me? You suck," and takes off. 3 days after that, 9 gates on my farm were open. I'm the only fence from here to 70. If they would have killed some innocent person, I would have lost my farm. I'm not in it for me, okay? I'm in it to try to protect this township for future development that's going to be coming.
Joe, would you want a pen full of dogs, and there's no limit on the size of this daycare, 200 feet from your property line at 9 o'clock at night, maybe 20 or 30 dogs barking? Would any of you like to live with that next door to you?
No, I wouldn't, but we gotta try to compromise here and make things that, maybe they're not allowed outside all the time. Okay? Hey, when I wean my calves, my neighbors complain all the time. What am I supposed to do?
You're protected though, being a farmer from that. That's normal
That's totally
agricultural.
separate, though, you know that.
Yeah, not 30 dogs. You're not even allowed to own 30 dogs
But I don't want a dog.
at a time.
What Joe just said about the cows, you guys gotta think about down the road. Down the road, these guys might not be our supervisors. There might be other people that move back into our township and not want cows there. So when you treated animals across the board, they get treated one way, somebody changes it, Joe won't be able to have cows, I won't be able to have cows. You have to think about what you're letting in where you are.
You're already grandfathered.
They're already, but right now, they could put those anywhere in A1, but they have to come and get it approved. Like Pete said, he can't enforce it if it's not on the books.
What we're being told here isn't quite accurate. We're told that the zoning hasn't been redone in 30 years. I'm zoning chapter 180 here, September 2009. That sounds like 15 years ago. Yeah, well, you said it hasn't been done in 30 years, or Jim said that. Well, there's been changes and there's been amendments, and that's how we dealt with it all the 30 years I've been around here, that's how we dealt with it. We didn't throw everything out and say, you have to bring all these commercial
Throw everything
uses
out.
in.
This is an amendment. It's an amendment. You guys keep saying that. Like, we didn't redo the whole thing. It's our current ordinance is 202 pages.
So that's, the saldo's what, 70, 80 pages, the whole thing's like 240 pages.
Okay, because I broke down the numbers after you did this last time. It's a net gain of 30 pages from the current ordinance that we run right now to the one that's gonna be done. That's including the saldo.
Right, it's like 240
It added 30 pages.
And we're probably 150 grand into it already.
Well, that has nothing to do with me. That doesn't
Understand,
really
but
argument.
that's like, we're
The
approaching a
15
whole year
changes that
approaching
you're
that.
talking about in 2009, or 15 changes made to the zoning map. We just went over them, we were reviewing the zoning map. It had nothing to do with the language, it was in the zoning ordinance.
And speaking of zoning map, we redid it in 2014, because if you show this on here.
You keep saying that, and we have found no evidence of any change, of any supervisor signing off on anything like that.
Well, in the January.
We've looked for it, because I was there, I want to find it.
Reorganization meeting in January 1st, 2016, Bob Bear's property up here, along 70 that stands towards 519 was rezoned from That B1 to M1.
I believe
There
you.
was another change on another parcel on the other end of the township. And when I brought the map into 2014, it was because we were going under, we were in a zoning hearing, about that property, and there was a conflict between the maps. Now, the map has seemed to disappear. Nobody knows what happened to it.
I don't know what map you're talking about.
The map in 2014, I didn't make it up. I brought it in to show
The way the maps work.
and it disappeared. The last thing I heard from Julie is it was locked in Jimmy's office.
Wouldn't it be filed with the county though, like you do because it's in the plan?
Well,
So
that's what I'm about trying to say.
Okay.
The way it works is there's a change in language. You make an ordinance, or you amend an ordinance in the language, and then you change the map to coincide.
Mhm.
So I don't know, I don't disbelieve you. I think you're telling the truth to the best of your knowledge. What I can't find is any language that says that any of those changes were made.
Well,
And
think
it
of
would
it,
have
I
had
was
to
here
be.
in 2014, none of
And
you
I
other
wasn't,
people were.
and I wasn't. But,
None
so
of
then
you
I would
people
have to
were.
find the language that would say that. Because then I'm just going off of your word, and I'm not gonna take you for your word, but you gotta find some documentation within the minutes. Was there?
I don't have to find it. I put the request.
We went through all the minutes, sir, and it's not there. Nobody ever voted on the changes, and it's there.
The information's here in this office, somebody doesn't want to find it.
We went through the past minutes of the meetings, and there's no vote on changing the zoning map, which would have had to have been a criteria. No, legal criteria has to be voted on. Yeah.
yeah, and you have to send out notice to everybody affected.
We went through them, and we never
The map
voted.
has to be recorded in
I mean-
order of deeds too, so the 2000.
So if they did it, they would definitely have
There's no stamp for
I don't
recorded.
believe that's been recorded as a deed, recorded deeds. I think it's subdivision.
I can show you, right?
Well, that's fine. I'm more than happy to be wrong about that detail, but as far as I'm concerned, as far as I've ever known and been taught, that the zoning map gets changed here, I don't know that you have to record it at the county.
Well, ask your solicitor, he asked him everything else.
You're treating me like I do this for a job. Okay, I get paid. So I know my knowledge is according to what I know. So you can ask the solicitor, that is a legal question, actually, so you're more than welcome to ask it, Abu. And I may be wrong, because I'm not a lawyer. But to the best of my knowledge, the zoning map that was passed in 2008 is attached to amendment. That we do have language on. The 2014 change you keep talking about, we haven't found any language. And I don't know if you think we're hiding something. If the language was there, I wouldn't care. Just make it happen. There's no nefarious, at least not on my part. You can accuse everybody else, but you can't accuse me of it, because I'll tell you straight up, there isn't.
Well, it's off.
Nobody made your map disappear. I didn't do it.
Well, it was in here. and now-
I even looked for it, the evidence of me being wrong. And we haven't found it.
So there's no justification in saying that, no, this is valid because all of a sudden it was.
I'm saying there's a lot of enclosed things that happen. There's oftentimes subdivision things, they're in the law. One plan comes in, I'm sure you've seen this as a zoning hearing board, and the planning commission has seen it. You get a draft, and it never goes anywhere, or it doesn't get voted on, it dies on the vine. It happens a lot. So maybe that's the explanation, I don't know. All I'm saying is we've never found a vote from the township supervisors in the past that made a 2014 change. And we've looked at all of them because we were looking at all the other ones that were made that were penciled in on the map. Because we're not changing the zoning, but we're gonna update the map, as John Tran said earlier, to reflect what is actually, all the changes that were made in the past. Because when we came here, like I said, there were things that were literally penciled in there, changed to B1. I believe one of Bob Bear's farm was on there and penciled in.
It wasn't penciled in, it was the actual map that was changed.
Well, the map that was on the wall was never changed. That's all I can tell you. I can only go off on the evidence that's in front of
And
me.
Dave Blackburn, very lovely, the map was on the wall, with the changes on it, very, and he had copied of that map for my own use in, zoning here.
Unfortunately, I can't ask her. I don't have to. But the point is that they would have had to vote on that map change. That's the point. It would have had to have been in the record.
The January 6th meeting, 2016, reorganization, you should look at it.
It says 1-2016 Ball Bear. It was changed from A1/B1 M1.
So that changed the date.
Yeah, but it's not on the map because it hasn't been updated since 2009.
So that change
But
was
that
made.
will be on.
Yeah, the change was made, but the map was made too. I didn't make the map up.
Well, it would have had to have gone through the planning commission. Does Bill Paul have recollection of that?
For some reason, Bill wasn't involved in that. It was only myself, Roger Rainey, and Barry Grimron.
Well, it would have had to go past.
Well, they didn't always follow the procedures, Lindsay, so. Frank has firsthand experience with it. You got a copy of the map, so.
Typically, I'll be the first, but this is one of the reasons why stuff needs updated. It's not only just the process, the language, it's the procedure. That's what these guys have been working for a long time. And ever since I've been here, ever since they got voted in, that's the biggest change I've seen. Is they're trying to clean it all up. They're trying to put processes in, so when you guys come in for an application, you get a whole entire packet, and you don't have to sift through everything and call 50 people to get a question answered. You can just read through the documentation and get it. So, and to that point, typically, if you make a zoning map amendment in the language and it gets voted on, you should have your engineer update that map within 90 days. I think that's actually even in the MPC. So if they didn't do it, then the previous boards have to blame for that.
I can appreciate the fact that the two supervisors who spoke here about 5 or 10 minutes ago about their personal experience with their dog kennel and cows. That's deplorable what happened to you. People blaming you specifically
Well, it's been
for.
going around. I'm working up on Rainy Road
I'm
right
talking.
now.
I heard you. I heard you. Can you hear me?
I had two
heard
residents come up to me and said that Mr. Pollock came to their house.
I heard you.
On Sunday and said that.
I'm agreeing with you. I don't argue with you. I'm agreeing with you.
Is opening up a veterinarian daycare dog kennel on the property. That's what was told to me.
Excuse me, wait, we have.
I'm agreeing with you.
Okay.
I'm agreeing with you. I'm not against you. I'm not against you.
There, we have witnesses. It
I'm
wasn't
agreeing with you.
veterinary. It was a.
What I'm trying to say is make a point.
I don't make these things up, believe me.
Hey, let me say one thing.
Still alive, my daughter graduated, she's moving to Nashville.
Okay, then tell me this.
You made the
Lord,
statement
Lord,
at the
why
first
did you
meeting,
tell
I
me
tell
that
my
they
daughter
came
to
to your
open
house?
up the state doggy daycare. He made that statement, I could see how that would get out there. He made that statement. Bill came to my house.
Yeah, you told people that. What, you want to throw stones? We can throw stones.
Who did I tell that?
This adversarial back and forth is not helpful. It's just not. It's not. We really need to just get back to brass tacks. So you were trying to make a point that you're trying to protect the community in our township, and I can appreciate that. So I don't really see where the impasse is between Pollock and you and the board. You say you can't work with him, he's too loud or whatever, he always wants to talk. There's got to be some way that we need to get together so that all people can be heard. Not just talking, not the loudest guy talking in the room. Just let's get something done. I mean, what do you need, a referee? I'll volunteer to referee. I mean, I will. No gloves. I mean, we just need to work together. We're all in this together.
We've taken in everybody's suggestions. This is the
Well, really, the way it sounds when I've come to these two meetings, it really looks adversarial. That these folks are obstinate. They don't want to share. I'm not criticizing. I'm not saying anything bad against you. It's just like you've been very closed-mouthed about what it is that you guys want to do. You've not been clear as to how it is you're trying to help our township, other than to say, oh, if we don't do this, then they're just going to come in. Well, we have voices that need to be heard. These folks seem to be trying to help our voices be heard. I think we just need to come together and work together. It's not too late. It's not too late to work together.
You know, the public, we view you all as crooked, sneaky, everything about you. And
All of us.
Well, it's a persona that's been put out there. We're not really specifically accusing you of anything.
How you're responding with having the daylight meetings, keeping the public out of it. Everything you want to do is behind closed doors. And in my view of you, you might all be great guys. I know Joe personally. I know Joe personally.
So I know you too, Bob, and I'll get
It
hurts inside, man. Seriously, it hurts inside.
I'm not picking on you, though.
Seriously.
What I'm saying is,
I mean, when I get accused of going to have a party barn at my place, my residents coming around and tell me about it. People rip my fields up with four-wheel drives, leave the gates open. I've lived there 55 years. It's never once happened. Never. It's this social media bullshit. It goes through everybody's heads.
Well, is it because of the?
Well, I can say that the group, the transparency group, they did not post any rumors. And if rumors and stuff, I take off. Bunch of bull crap, I take off because that's not what the group is for. So there wasn't rumors through our group.
Nobody should be attacking you personally at all. If you are truly
And no, I'll say that's bull crap.
We need to come together and let's all work together towards the end.
I'll tell you what, in the 4 years that I've been here with Jim's done a good bit of positive for us. You guys got the best fire protection, the best ambulance service around your town. And he did it all himself. I didn't have a part in it. Mr. Bear didn't have a part in it. Jim Box don't have a part in it.
Nobody's accusing anybody. Nobody here is accusing anybody.
Sneaky.
Nobody here is accusing anybody.
My point is, we need to trust you as our supervisors, all of you. But the way you're handling things, you're losing.
We've had meetings with them. We had a meeting one time where Slister just got up and walked out because he said you can't deal with Mr. Falk.
But it's not about you, it's about the public too. It's 2 o'clock meetings. We all have jobs. That just seems so.
Our meetings will be at 6.
Okay.
It was for 2 months, it was at 2 o'clock.
Sure.
Prior to this, they were always at 2 o'clock. Okay? They were always at 2 o'clock before I stepped in. They were always at 2.
Well, I just think that you all have the best interest of people. We're speaking our opinion.
We've tried our best here.
Okay.
We've made a lot of improvements in this township in a
John, I'm
lot
not arguing with you
years.
on that. What I'm saying is, the point moving forward is, we understand the lawsuits, we understand they're moving in, but protect us here. We want things moved so that it doesn't interfere with people's lives from day in and day out. Everybody has a purpose. Everybody moved to this area for a reason. That's why we moved here, for this reason, in the country. You know, we don't want neighbors who are going to be having parties and, you know, what we want is to be protected. That's why you were voted in, is to protect your township and your people. And that's what we're asking for. Simple as that.
Nobody can deny that Yinz have improved the roads, the mowing. Yinz improved everything in this whole township. We all love it. But we just want to keep it.
This just hit a sore spot with a lot of people.
It did. It did. You know, and I guess what pisses me off the most is that Bill didn't speak up. Maybe he is the loudest voice in the room, and we should be thanking him, because if he didn't speak up, this would all have been
Yes, that's for sure.
And the public wouldn't know anything.
Can I ask Mr. Paul a question? Mr. Paul, if you could push a button right now and make everything go away and keep it the way it is that what you want?
No.
What do you want?
You have to prepare for growth. We have not said, you've got a party barn, there's a place for them. It's just not next to 80, 90% of the township in the residential areas. And that's what we're doing.
We don't have that fair share. Like, I know the guy here last meeting sat here and said, you don't accommodate. You say that we can only have that business in that small little area. We're going to be able to go to any big area and say that's what we want it to get.
All you have to do in zoning is you have to provide a reasonable location for each business use.
And if it's only 5%, and not a bigger city, we're going to get with that.
What we're doing now is we're providing business use in 95% of the township, in pure residential in 5%. And that, I think you would even get on an appeal, I think they throw this whole thing out on an appeal, because that's not reasonable. It's not reasonable to only have 5% of the township where you can have pure residential. And that's all I'm saying. We can find homes for all these uses. I've said this for months and months.
Well, my thing is, 85% of our place is already agricultural. We can't, are you gonna divvy that up?
Well, actually, the A1 zone is about 80% of.
Okay, 80%, I was off.
Okay,
What I'm saying is, though, unless you're gonna take 40% of that and make it residential, but you're gonna carve that up.
I was born here, I'm 75 years old, I lived here 40 years, I left for 35, I came back 20 years ago, and I've been in the big city, I know how things work. I've got over 40 years in these planning and zoning experiences. You just have to provide a use, and I understand. We haven't been sued, I've been in this position for 18 years. We haven't been sued, we haven't put things in people's backyards they didn't want, and we got people involved. If someone was going to do something that was potentially objectionable, we went to the people and we told them and we took their input, and it's called zoning variances. I've gotten zoning variances, and that's a much better process, but we can work with this revision. We have to have uses, and we're all for the uses. It's just that the hardcore business uses.
You're saying that's how that works. Every other municipality around us has these kind of things.
I understand, right.
And so we're the ones that know, and no one else knows. Nottingham has these kind of things, Worcester Bay has these kind of things, Canonsburg has these kind of things, Southwestern Bay has these kind of things, but Somerset Township, we know better.
But all of those townships are townships we don't want to become.
There's nothing wrong with Worcester Bay.
Exactly.
I'm about Canonsburg. It's coming, bro, it's coming. Only if you let it. Only if you let it. It's not gonna stay this way forever.
They might have those things, but their stipulations to have them are different. They're more than what some of them are.
This is the first step.
Well, actually, we're like into the last step. We're kind of like at the last step.
They have John Grant as their planning consultant, and they have me as zoning enforcement. In Nottingham, for party barn, special event bar and accessory, you have to have 1,000 feet between the party barn and the nearest residence.
Right now, we have nothing.
And what they wanted us to vote for, there was no setback.
But right now, we don't have anything of mention about party.
It's special event, well, we're saying we want to provide use of that, we just don't want it.
Do you understand that the power of yes or no resides with 2 or 3 of you? That's, I don't think that's really fair. I mean, I think you really should have rules spelled out, sort of like a constitution, not a title.
But that's what we've said. We've said we can have party barn. We said we can even take a portion of the A1 zone. We have zones that are near the highway and subject to the residents' approval that are going to be impacted. We can take an A2 and carve out a small section of A1, make it A2, and you can put these uses in.
Based on whether you feel is right. Based on whether you personally feel is right.
But
it's assuming rules written down in a book somewhere where everyone agrees that this is what we should do. You personally want this to happen this way, and if it doesn't, then it can't be. That's a definition of power. That's tyranny.
What about tyranny set up front? Isn't that the same as the supervisors?
No, they're elected officials. You don't want them on there? Toss them out.
But we're sitting here telling you that's not what we want. They're always all of us telling you.
It is tyranny. If we don't write these things down, then it's at their beck and call. Whatever they decide is what happens.
But he stands for our opinion.
90% wait. So what if you disagree with me? And he still goes that way. Single guy, or single 2 or 3 people. Write it down so everybody has the same rules. No, they have rules.
Yeah, but their rules affect us.
No. Their rules are written down. They can't do anything they can't overstep their bounds though.
They
They can have.
They agree with the party barn 100 feet from your house. That's their rule, buddy. They just want to.
It has to be a zoning law. That's why you write it down. And you can amend it whenever you want to.
That's why we're all here.
Well, what I'm saying
Dude, I've
is-
been here for 2 hours and now I'm just finding out why we're here.
You say, now we don't want any of this. We're gonna vote it down. The three of these guys vote this thing down. We're back to what they got. We're back to teal.
Well, what they got is what we've lived with for all this time. In other words, listen. In other words, listen.
Times are changing.
Don't have to change.
You're gonna get a lot better attorneys than what these guys can do. And I'm telling you what, if I wanted to do something with my 10 acres or my 20 acres or whatever I got, I'd probably find a damn good Philadelphia attorney and get it done.
But with zoning the way it is, you can try that and you put it for the application, and then they talk to your neighbors, and if it's adverse use, then it's going to be declined. What's wrong with that?
I don't care.
You don't care.
My Philadelphia attorney will go over it. I'm telling you.
Better hope he's registered in Washington.
And that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah,
go.
You don't,
I'm not trying to personally, you gotta write these things down. I'll personally tell you nothing. You don't realize what you're talking about. You really don't. You gotta write these things down. If you don't, then you're subject to attack. That's what you know nothing.
You can do better. Just like in Cecil Township, where we went through the same thing, where we were all promised that everybody's interest was for us, and that they wanted to preserve Cecil. And in one generation, my children lost their childhood schools. Every plan is bigger than the next. My house is no longer worth any value, because if you move into Cecil, you're not moving into the older 100-year-old home. You're moving into the big shiny $1 million home in the big new shiny plan. My property value has decreased. I've lost, my horses lost their place to live. Nobody wanted my horses around. I moved here to preserve all that. How can I feel safe knowing that in one generation, I'm not gonna repeat this cycle?
With all due respect, the Cecil Township need to make that happen. The market doesn't happen. People push it out.
How do we?
The state law only allows you to put a certain number of restrictions on anybody's property. Because as Francis said last meeting, all zoning is an infringement on your personal property rights. Nobody wants that. So, but we've all as a society said, hey, we'll allow for the rule of law, we'll allow some infringement on that. But that's not what drives the change. What drives the change is the population. We've seen one in Washington County in the last 10 years. Prior to that, we saw a drop off in the 80s when the mill shut down. Everybody moved away. We were all depressed. It is. But that's but these guys can only control a little bit of it. That's not what drives it. Conscious drive. And unfortunately, as you guys have all seen, everybody, all of us have seen it pushing out the Cecil. Hit Cecil first, Hansburg, South Red, gigantic now. But the supervisors didn't do that. I mean, I'm sure there are some supervisors in some townships that want fantastic growth and promoted it. I guess you might be able to make this similar. Might have done that. Did stuff. But even then, that's a development. That's just
Yeah, exactly, yeah. He's probably gonna run inside.